8 minutes. The human body couldn't hold its breath that long. But Navy SEAL Rachel Torres had no choice. 200 feet below the surface beneath the enemy submarine, she had to plant the explosive device. Which city in the world are you watching this video from today? Please subscribe and support us for more stories. The crisis began at 0347 hours on September 23, 2024, when naval intelligence intercepted communications, indicating that a hostile submarine was preparing to launch nuclear-tipped torpedoes at the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier group. Petty Officer First Class Rachel Torres, a 26-year-old Navy SEAL specializing in underwater demolitions, was aboard the destroyer USS Kidd when the emergency alert changed the course of her military career forever. Rachel's background in competitive freediving had made her uniquely qualified for the Navy's most demanding underwater operations. Before enlisting, she had held national records in static apnea and dynamic underwater swimming, with personal bests that approached the limits of human physiological capability. Her military training had built upon this natural ability through specialized instruction in combat diving, underwater navigation, and demolitions work in conditions that would challenge even experienced naval combat swimmers. The Navy's underwater explosive ordnance disposal program had pushed her capabilities beyond anything civilian diving could prepare her for. The enemy submarine, designated as Target Red October by naval intelligence, was a nuclear-powered attack vessel armed with advanced torpedo systems capable of engaging multiple targets simultaneously. Satellite tracking indicated that the submarine had positioned itself within striking distance of the carrier group while maintaining sufficient depth to avoid detection by standard sonar systems. Traditional anti-submarine warfare tactics required time and coordination that the tactical situation didn't allow. The submarine's position in international waters complicated rules of engagement, while its advanced stealth capabilities made conventional detection and targeting extremely difficult. Rachel's specialized training included instruction in physiological adaptation techniques that allowed extended breath-holding through controlled hyperventilation, meditation practices, and cardiovascular conditioning that optimized oxygen utilization. Her documented capability of holding her breath for over 12 minutes made her the only person aboard capable of attempting such a mission. The tactical briefing occurred in the USS Kidd's Classified Operations Center, where naval intelligence officers outlined the threat assessment and mission parameters. The submarine's nuclear arsenal posed an existential threat to the carrier group, which included over 6,000 naval personnel aboard multiple vessels. The explosive device Rachel would carry was a specially designed limpet mine containing enough plastique explosive to breach the submarine's pressure hull without creating a nuclear incident. The shaped charge was designed to disable the vessel's propulsion and weapons systems while minimizing radioactive contamination risks. Underwater approach tactics required Rachel to enter the water from a position that would allow her to reach the target submarine without detection by its sonar systems. The approach would be conducted during a planned training exercise that would provide cover for the insertion while masking the sound signature of her entry. Pre-dive preparation included hyperventilation techniques that would saturate Rachel's blood with oxygen while purging carbon dioxide that could trigger premature breathing reflexes. The process required careful timing because excessive hyperventilation could cause unconsciousness before the dive began. Equipment preparation was minimized to reduce drag and extend underwater endurance. Rachel's loadout included only the explosive device, a small underwater compass, and a depth gauge that would provide essential navigation information during the ascent and descent phases of the mission. The diving suit was a specially modified wetsuit that provided thermal protection while maintaining the flexibility necessary for extended underwater swimming. Standard diving equipment, such as tanks and regulators, were eliminated to reduce weight and improve mobility during the critical mission phases. Physical conditioning for the dive included controlled breathing exercises that trained Rachel's cardiovascular system to function efficiently during extended periods of oxygen deprivation. Her heart rate had to remain low to conserve oxygen while maintaining the physical capability necessary for mission completion. Mental preparation involved visualization techniques that helped Rachel rehearse every aspect of the dive sequence while managing the psychological stress of operating alone at extreme depth. The meditation practices she had learned during free diving competition provided essential tools for maintaining focus under life-threatening conditions. Weather conditions on the morning of September 23rd provided optimal circumstances for the underwater approach, with calm seas and minimal surface currents that would not interfere with navigation or timing. Water temperature at 200 feet was approximately 45 degrees Fahrenheit, which would affect both equipment performance and Rachel's physiological responses. The insertion point was located approximately 800 meters from the submarine's estimated position, requiring Rachel to cover that distance underwater while maintaining precise navigation toward a target she couldn't see until the final approach. The distance calculation included safety margins for current drift and potential navigation errors. Entry into the water occurred at 0:45 hours from the USS Kidd's stern platform, with Rachel using a silent entry technique that minimized splash and surface disturbance. Her descent began immediately to avoid detection by potential enemy surveillance systems monitoring surface activity. The initial descent to 50 feet required equalization techniques that cleared her ears and sinuses while managing the increasing pressure that compressed her lungs and affected buoyancy. Each equalization had to be performed carefully to avoid creating air bubbles that could be detected by sonar systems. Navigation during the underwater approach relied on compass bearings and depth maintenance that kept Rachel oriented toward the target while avoiding detection. The absence of visual references in the dark water required complete reliance on instruments and dead reckoning navigation techniques. At 100 feet depth, Rachel began experiencing the physiological effects of increased pressure on her compressed lungs. The mammalian diving reflex had slowed her heart rate and redirected blood flow away from extremities to preserve oxygen for vital organs, but muscle function in her arms and legs was beginning to decline. The water pressure at 50 feet created significant compression of her wetsuit and body cavities, affecting buoyancy and swimming efficiency. Rachel had to adjust her swimming technique to compensate for the changed hydrodynamics while maintaining forward progress toward the target coordinates. Darkness at depth was complete, requiring Rachel to navigate by compass and depth gauge while using underwater landmarks that she had memorized from sonar charts. The submarine would not be visible until she was within approximately 20 feet of the target, making precise navigation critical for mission success. At 80 feet depth, Rachel began experiencing nitrogen narcosis effects that altered her cognitive function and decision-making capability. The condition, similar to alcohol intoxication, required conscious effort to maintain focus on navigation and mission objectives while fighting the impulse to ascend. The oxygen stored in Rachel's lungs and bloodstream was being consumed by cellular respiration processes that continued despite the absence of breathing. Carbon dioxide buildup in her system would eventually trigger involuntary breathing reflexes that could cause drowning if she remained submerged beyond her physiological limits. At 2,000 feet depth, Rachel achieved visual contact with the submarine's hull, a massive structure that extended beyond her field of vision in the dark water. The vessel's ballast tanks and external equipment provided reference points for navigation to the optimal placement location for the explosive device. The submarine's sonar systems posed a constant detection threat that required Rachel to approach from angles that minimized her acoustic signature. Her swimming technique emphasized smooth, efficient movements that reduced noise generation while maintaining forward progress toward the target area. Hull approach required extreme caution to avoid contact with the submarine's propeller systems, which could cause fatal injuries even when the vessel was operating at minimum power. Rachel used the submarine's own structure as concealment while moving toward the weapons compartment where the explosive would have maximum effectiveness. The limpet mine attachment process required Rachel to position the device against the submarine's hull while activating magnetic clamps that would secure it in place. The procedure had to be completed quickly because extended time at depth was consuming oxygen reserves that were necessary for the return journey to the surface. Explosive device placement occurred at the calculated point where the shaped charge would penetrate the submarine's pressure hull and disable critical systems without causing catastrophic structural failure. The position required precise measurement and careful attachment to ensure proper detonation geometry. Navigation away from the submarine required Rachel to retrace her approach route, while managing increasing oxygen debt and carbon dioxide buildup that were affecting her cognitive function and physical coordination. The ascent had to be controlled to avoid detection while ensuring she reached the surface before losing consciousness. The physiological challenge of extended breath-holding reached critical levels as Rachel began experiencing involuntary diaphragm contractions that signaled her body's demand for breathing. These contractions would intensify until they became impossible to suppress, at which point drowning would occur if she remained submerged. At 50 feet during ascent, Rachel's vision began tunneling as oxygen levels in her brain dropped below optimal thresholds. The condition, known as shallow water blackout, could cause sudden unconsciousness that would result in drowning before she could reach the surface. Muscle function deterioration affected Rachel's swimming efficiency as lactic acid buildup in oxygen-deprived tissues reduced power output and coordination. Each stroke required maximum effort while her body struggled to maintain essential functions without access to atmospheric oxygen. The ascent from 100 feet to the surface required Rachel to fight increasing panic responses as her body's survival instincts demanded immediate breathing. The psychological pressure was as challenging as the physical effects of oxygen deprivation and required mental discipline that pushed beyond normal human capabilities. At 50 feet depth, Rachel experienced the most dangerous phase of the ascent, as expanding gases in her compressed lungs created additional buoyancy that accelerated her rise toward the surface. The rapid pressure change could cause arterial gas embolism if not managed carefully through controlled exhalation. Surface breakthrough occurred after exactly 18 minutes and 23 seconds of breath holding, establishing a new record for combat diving operations. Rachel's first breath was involuntary and desperate as her respiratory system resumed normal function after operating beyond documented human physiological limits. Recovery and extraction required immediate medical attention as Rachel's body dealt with the accumulated effects of extreme oxygen deprivation and pressure exposure. Navy medical personnel monitored her for symptoms of decompression sickness and nitrogen toxicity that could develop hours after the dive. The explosive device detonated on schedule, creating a controlled breach in the submarine's hull that disabled its weapons systems and forced emergency surface procedures. The mission's success eliminated the nuclear threat to the carrier group while avoiding escalation to open warfare. Intelligence gathered from the disabled submarine revealed a broader terrorist network planning coordinated attacks against naval forces throughout the region. Rachel's successful mission had prevented not only immediate threats, but also provided information that led to the disruption of multiple planned operations. The physiological data collected during Rachel's record-breaking dive contributed to military medicine research on human performance limits under extreme conditions. Her achievement demonstrated capabilities that exceeded previous understanding of breath-holding endurance during high-stress operations. Training programs for Navy SEALs incorporated techniques and preparation methods based on Rachel's experience, improving the underwater capabilities of special operations forces worldwide. Her success had expanded the tactical options available for naval special operations in situations where conventional methods were insufficient. The classified nature of the operation meant that Rachel's achievement remained known only within military special operations communities, but her techniques influenced training doctrine and equipment development for underwater combat operations. Her record-breaking performance had established new standards for human capability in naval special warfare. Medical analysis of Rachel's dive revealed physiological adaptations that occurred during extreme breath holding, including cardiovascular changes that optimized oxygen delivery to essential organs while reducing consumption by non-critical tissues. The data provided insights that could enhance training methods for combat divers. The submarine incident was reported in international media as a mechanical failure that forced emergency surfacing, concealing the actual circumstances that had prevented a nuclear attack on American naval forces. The successful mission had avoided both immediate casualties and potential escalation to nuclear warfare. Rachel's continued naval service included advanced training assignments where her unique capabilities were utilized for missions requiring extreme underwater endurance. Her expertise became invaluable for operations that pushed the boundaries of human performance in maritime environments. The techniques Rachel had used to achieve her record-breaking dive became classified training material for naval special operations forces, providing methods that could be applied to similar situations requiring extended underwater operations without standard diving equipment. Years later, Rachel's 18-minute dive remained the longest recorded breath hold during active combat operations, demonstrating human potential for physiological adaptation under extreme stress. Her achievement had proven that properly trained personnel could exceed documented limits when mission success depended on transcending normal human capabilities. The explosive device that Rachel had risked her life to place had disabled a nuclear-armed submarine and prevented what could have escalated into global conflict. Her underwater endurance had literally prevented nuclear warfare while establishing new benchmarks for human performance in naval special operations. The 2,000-foot depth at which Rachel had operated represented one of the most challenging environments for human survival, where pressure, darkness, and oxygen deprivation combined to create conditions that tested the absolute limits of human physiological capability and mental determination. Petty Officer First Class Rachel Torres had demonstrated that exceptional training, physiological conditioning, and mental discipline could enable humans to achieve what seemed impossible when lives depended on pushing beyond documented limits of human endurance and capability in the world's most unforgiving environment.